Hi, this is the part in the Nearpod where I would like you to double check your periodic table and make sure that it looks like this if it's finished. So you can see that mine has been filled in with the information from the brain dump video. It might look a little different to yours because I write pretty big, and so I had to kind of adjust so I could fit everything in there. But most importantly from today's Nearpod lesson is that you understood the placement of groups and periods, and now the categories of metals, nonmetals, and metalloids on the periodic table. So hopefully you have labeled here groups or families, and you have circled one to show that groups or families go vertically or up and down on the periodic table. And I believe they asked you to draw a line through group 1 in the Nearpod on the periodic table. And then you have labeled periods over here on the periodic table. And you also may have drawn a line through period 4 on your periodic table. So periods go horizontally or side to side, left to right. Groups or families also have similar properties or characteristics in common. And one example is reactivity, which we will talk about tomorrow. And so these numbers that go across the top of each column are the group or family number, which you've also gotten from the brain dump, that these single digits here and the ones place here identify valence electrons, which we will also talk about tomorrow. Periods, which we said go horizontally, left to right, have period numbers right here, which you circled from brain dump. So these period numbers, there are 7 periods on the periodic table, just like there are 18 groups or families, but each of these period numbers tells you how many energy levels or energy shells there are in each of these atoms. So in period 5, in this row, all of these atoms have 5 energy levels. So basically, as you go down the periodic table, the atoms get larger. And the larger the atom, the more electrons they will have, because they also have more protons. So the more energy shells they will need to hold the electrons. So if you look at rubidium, who's in period 5, rubidium needs 5 energy shells to hold its 37 electrons. Next, we need to make sure that you have color coded correctly. So you should have a key on yours as well. And so I just kind of highlighted here that metals are blue, metalloids are green, and nonmetals are yellow. Make sure that you notice that most of the periodic table, including these 2 rows down here, make sure you color them, are blue, they're metals. Then your nonmetals are mostly located over here. There's not too many of them on the right-hand side of the periodic table, but one exception over here is hydrogen. So make sure you did not color hydrogen blue. Hydrogen should be yellow. And then located in the middle are these green ones, your metalloids. So basically the separating line is this step line, this bold line that looks like stairs. Anything touching the stairs, with the exception of aluminum, is a metalloid. So they would be green. And I know in the picture it was kind of hard to see because it was a different shade of green, but polonium and astatine, although it's debatable when you ask different scientists, they are labeled as metalloids on our periodic table. So just quickly glance and make sure that you have yours colored correctly. And then make sure that you know the characteristics of each of the categories on the periodic table. Very important. So metals all basically have characteristics like the ones listed here. Metals are found on the left-hand side of the periodic table. They are shiny, so they have luster. They are malleable, which means they are bendable, which means you can make shapes out of them. Ductile means you can stretch them into wires, and they are good conductors. Metalloids have characteristics of both metals and nonmetals, which is why they fall in between. So they have properties of both. They can be malleable and ductile, but they could be poor conductors. It also really kind of depends on each individual element in that group. Nonmetals are mainly gases. They're found on the right-hand side of the periodic table, with one exception. So they are the opposite of metals. They are dull, which means they're not shiny. They are insulators, and they are poor conductors. And they are not malleable or ductile. And the word to describe that is brittle. Brittle means that they break easily, so they cannot be molded or bent into shapes. So please make sure that your periodic table is labeled with all the important information. Remember, all of this information is to help you. So if there's anything that you missed, you can pause the video and fill it in, or go back to the brain dump if needed, or raise your hand if you need help. Otherwise, you can go on.